Tim Ballard, the man that wrote the book, literally, The Sound of Freedom, is having a conversation with Tim Pool about child trafficking. And I figured this would be very interesting to listen to, being that he is the expert. And if you're going to hear about child trafficking and what is going on with all of that, Tim Ballard seems like he's the guy you would want to listen to and want to hear what he has to say. And I like Tim Pool. Tim Pool's fair with guests. He even has people that I would just want to slap. Just
absolutely hate.
Yeah, I can't stand some of these people that he'll bring in, but he's so patient with them. And I respect that. So that I know he's going to give a fair shake to Tim, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be on Tim's side, just knowing Tim Pool. What awful human being could possibly be for child trafficking? But that's the question we have to ask quite often today.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the way that his movie has been treated.
Yep.
By the critics who are running cover, calling it alt-right and QAnon. That one still gets me.
Like, how is that even still a thing?
I mean, people are still obsessed over Trump and everything he does, and they're the same people that talk constantly about QAnon. I know, other than the QAnon shaman, I know very little about QAnon, but I could absolutely guarantee some of the things that I believe will have me called QAnon, which is how ridiculous the entire insult, I suppose, is to begin with. But let's hear what Tim Ballard has to say, because I really do want to hear more about how this goes down. Let's do this.
You're the expert. Can you break down, how would you describe grooming?
Oh, absolutely. First, the pedophiles want a kid who's sexualized, who will participate and choose to have sex with them. That's what they want. But you got to get a kid sexualized first. You know what porn does to an adult brain? I mean, I've talked to porn addicts. An adult brain. It changes the chemistry of the brain. It actually creates a damage of the brain. Kids whose brains are just like crystallizing still, they're little sponges. So you give a third grader this, and they're giving third graders this stuff. And then you expose them to TikTok and let them have these kids, by the time they're 13, they're sex robots. They know, they're teaching kids to masturbate too in some schools.
Yes.
That's part of it. Go to your special corner and touch yourself while you look at this. So these kids are already sexualized to the point where, and again, pedophiles are salivating. Like, hey, they're doing our job for us. These groups, the leftists out there, they're doing our job for us.
They're laughing. They're laughing right now.
They're salivating.
But you
That's
say they are doing the job for us. Why not they are doing the job? Mm-hmm. The groups are one and the same. I mean,
you're right.
I made this argument. There was I can't remember exactly what the story was, but I was critical of literal grooming. In fact, let's go back to pre-Elon Musk Twitter. There was an image of adult men showing graphic adult images to children. And I said, this is grooming. I got suspended. They deleted the tweet, and they said, you can't post this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I can't call out the abuse. They said it was offensive. It was hate speech.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So
wow.
I criticize a story, and I get these leftist publications attacking me for it. My response was, if my position is that child abusers are bad, and you rush to their defense and attack me over it, my only assumption is you are a child abuser, or you are in support of child abuse.
Both are wrong.
Yeah. They get so angry about it, but I'm like, there's no legitimate reason to defend what they're doing in these schools.
And for the same reason, no legitimate reason to attack Sound of Freedom.
Exactly.
But it's the same motive. And these guys also, every one of most of these publications, by the way, you're going to find they're also promoting this. Stop calling them pedophiles. That's mean. Call them minor attracted persons and add them to the LGBTQ.
I'm going to call them pederasts.
Yep, I will absolutely not.
Make it worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Perverts.
Do you think that I've heard yesterday? I think you mentioned the average age of a child that sees pornography on the internet is 7 years old.
Average first exposure by some statistics.
And
is
also
7.
5,000% increase in child trafficking. Are they somehow related? Is
Absolutely.
this the grooming?
Absolutely, because they want willing victims. They want willing victims.
Let me ask you something about. We've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. If someone goes out into public, holding up a graphic image of adults engaging in adult activities, that person gets arrested. No question. Cop comes and arrests him. The internet is a publicly accessible space in much the same way. But for some reason, we have not enforced laws. It's preventing people from posting obscene, lewd, lascivious images in places children have access to. Why? What's the difference? Now, I know there's a lot of libertarians who are like, oh, you're talking dangerous talk, Tim. We got to have freedom here. And I'm like, we don't have the freedom to go and put up an advertising truck with a TV on it, park it in the middle of Times Square and play porn. You can't do that. Right. They will come and tow that vehicle and arrest you on the spot. So how is it that you can go on a social media platform children use and do the exact same thing? That's a question I have. Perhaps I don't have the moral authority or the understanding to say what we should or shouldn't do. I lean towards maybe we should enforce it as illegal as it should be. I'm wondering if you would agree.
Tim always thinks
or
things
what your thoughts
through
would be
pretty-
on that.
I mean, I do. It's this weird double standard. I'd say the same thing. If you see what kids are doing, you're going to talk about this tomorrow on your show. But what adults are doing to kids in these forums and these parades they're doing, or the drag queen shows. I mean, you've seen the videos. They're exposing themselves. If that same person walked to a school playground and did that same thing, they'd be arrested. But again, they're still kids. They're kids in both places. And here we are again. And there are states, I think Tennessee, who are trying to create laws that protect kids from that material. That you can't just post whatever. There's certain barriers. There's ID requirements that have to be verified for a kid to get through a certain a wall in the internet. I think that's important to protect kids.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention here, you were sort of talking about genderqueer and a lot of this perverse literature that they're putting into the school system. One thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is that this isn't something on the fringes, and even what you were talking about with respect to the pedophile who's depicted at the beginning of Sound of Freedom, who has written about how he thinks these are natural impulses and society's puritanical. This person, unfortunately, is part of a movement which is much broader and more mainstream than people realize. Alfred Kinsey, Wardell Pomeroy, all of the premier sex researchers who we are told to look to as experts and pioneers said similar things. Kinsey wrote in his book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, that the reason a girl is traumatized when she's abused, when she's underage, is because the parents made a big deal out of it and not because of what actually happened. This is in his published work. This is the person who's credited as being the first person to scientifically study sex. His first book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, was published in 1948 and sold several 100,000 copies. This was a textbook. People were reading it. And there is a table infamously titled Table 34 that includes data tables which only could have been collected through the abuse of children. I'm not going to graphically explain what those data tables purport to measure, but it's hundreds and hundreds of boys under the age of 15 who had to have been raped for him to get that information. This is mainstream. It's public knowledge. His co-author, Wardell Pomeroy, was in Time magazine in the 1980s saying out loud that he thinks incest between adults and children can be, in his words, beneficial. This is not even hiding under the rug. There's an interview on the Phil Donahue show with people from the Kinsey Institute and Judith Riesman, and they're defending all of this, saying that it was okay. So these aren't fringe weirdos here and there. This stuff is way more mainstream than people realize.
It is. It's just taken this long. But he's the father, by the way, not only of our modern sex education programs like this stuff, he's also the father of the pedophile movement.
Yeah.
It all derives from the same sick, backwards falsehoods.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I mean, you clearly know your stuff on that.
You're
brilliant.
You're talking about this pedophile at the beginning of the film, and also a real guy that you studied who made that claim that all men have these predilections or whatever.
And you thinks everyone steals.
It's exactly like it's the projection. It's the world must be the way I see it. Everyone must see the world the way I do. There's no other explanation. Certainly, I'll put it this way. I don't think anyone's ever accused these people of being smart. Something's clearly wrong with them. But it's like, my dude, every country on the planet to varying degrees, wants to stop you, right? The United States is actively in the process of trying to stop you. Clearly, the world thinks what you are doing is wrong. To believe otherwise is insanity. These people, but like I said, no one's, I don't know. I wouldn't accuse people of being smart. Even Epstein was not smart enough, right?
Right. I gotta know, man. Like, after having experienced the last 20 years and making the movie and everything, how do you do you have kids too? I don't know if you want to talk about it or not, but like, how do you educate your children about sexuality now? Do they need to be educated younger? Do they just need the words to understand the body parts so that if they see something, they can tell you? I mean, the idea of like saying no, go away. I don't know that can ever work. But
let me elaborate a little bit on that.
Please.
If there's a kid who doesn't understand what's happening to them and they can't articulate it, how do you navigate that problem?
Right. So my wife's in charge of that. I try to support, but what she does, and this requires actual parenting to do this. You have to know your kids intuitively, and moms have a gift. My wife certainly does. The gifts I wish I had, but I don't. And so it's interesting. Each of my kids have the conversation at a different age. Some it's 7, some it's 10. Some they weren't ready till they're 12 or 13. My wife literally prays over when it's time to say what and what to say and what details to give. Also, listen to your kids ask questions. So you got to give them the basics at a certain point, right? Like you said, they have to have the vocabulary to be able to understand where dangers come in. But the kids will ask and satisfy their curiosity. Otherwise, the playground will. Mm-hmm. And you don't want the playground to satisfy their curiosity. So Catherine listens. Okay, you're going somewhere. Let's sit down. I will be the one that gives you the answer before somebody else does. So,
did you give them internet access when they were younger?
It's the same process. So some of my kids were ready at 10 to begin monitored. Some not till they're 13. It depends on.
Good for you.
It depends. Each it's customized. You know.
It's got to be monitored, because I want people. I don't know where this culture came from. This idea of like the kid can go online, have fun. You're basically saying you are giving your kid a private jet to go anywhere in the world and see whatever they want. Clearly, you would never allow that. You're not going to let your kid go down to the, you can't go north of this street. You can't go 4 blocks out. We tell our kids, when I'm growing up, it's like, don't go past this street, don't go past this street. And we'd listen for the most part. Come home when the lights come on. There were limitations on how far we could go. If you went too far,
we
you
would
got
listen
lost,
for the
you
most
got
part.
kidnapped, something bad happened to you, how your parents going to find out? The internet may not be the exact same thing in terms of physical space, but you can access literally anything. And that's ridiculous to allow a kid to do whatever. Imagine if you were like, you're allowed to go wherever you want, son, even the adult bookstore down the street. Go, like, no way. And not only that, they wouldn't let you in. It's illegal.
Right.
But the internet is different.
Yep.
They let kids do whatever they want. They don't think about it. Parents really need to understand it's not just, quote unquote, the internet. It's unrestrained access to some of the worst and the best things humanity has created. Not every kid is ready for all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, kids, I would say there is a large quantity of things on the internet no one could handle seeing.
Yeah.
Let alone children.
With one click.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
There's videos of murder.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day there was a viral video of 3 guys murdering someone that was going around. And if you were just some kid and your parents gave you a phone or a computer, you saw a graphic and brutal murder take place. The children should not be watching that stuff.
Well, you made this point about the fact that you wouldn't be allowed in an adult bookstore if you were just walking down the street, or a place that sells pornography. I shouldn't use
And now it's in your
euphemisms.
schools?
And not only that, but Pornhub banned access in the state of Utah because Utah passed a law saying we need to have stricter methods of verifying people's ages so that kids don't end up viewing porn on this website. That made Pornhub very upset. So not only is it the case that kids are allowed into these like digital establishments, the companies actually throw a fit when they aren't. And I'll also mention this. My dad made this point when I was a kid, and he was referring to television. I think it's even more pressing with internet today. But he said this is the first time in human history where parents allow complete strangers into their home to teach their children.
Yep.
And now it's two-way. Your kid has an exchange with them. The Trevor Project posted this interface that they were advertising to talk to somebody about your sexual identity, and if you hit the escape button 3 times, it deletes all of your browser history, and they were advertising that.
Wow.
They were advertising that.
They
So
don't-
if an adult walks in the room, hit escape 3 times, all of it's cleared.
Now, what would you say about an adult who goes to a kid, tries to talk to him about sex, and says, "Don't tell your parents"?
Horrifying.
It's like textbook.
Absolutely. It's horrifying. It's grooming, and it's part of, again, the pedophile movement. They've been saying it for years. Separate kids from the parents.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.
The end.
Well, Tim was a buzzkill on that one for parents. Tim don't even have kids, but he's like, you've got to watch everything. You can't stop it, man. You can't stop it.
These are the end times.
Very encouraging, Tim.
I mean, what's bad is he's telling the truth.
He is. I've always been told it was called programming for a reason. And that's why when
Yeah.
they refer to television programming, that's what it is.
That's literally what it is.
It's there to program you. And that's more, back when I was younger, I think it was more based off of advertisements. So that you would go buy McDonald's, and drink Coke, and nothing like it is today.
No.
Especially over the last few years, it's just become nothing but programming people from one direction or the other.
Yeah, there's no in between.
Yeah, we have to have our political message in there. Our identities depend on it. The whole show's identity depends on me, making sure you know my identity.
Which is why independent writers are going to be the thing of the future.
And that's why they're on strike right now, because they're starting to lose value. But get in the comments, let us know what you think of Tim Pool. This entire discussion, I mean, this is so...
It's so deep and so, like...
Well...
It hits hard.
It's spot on when they say that they're just grooming children by sexualizing them at a much earlier age than back when I was young. And they're right, these kids they have sex put all around them. The top artists out there, some of these, when did women become rappers? I missed that whole thing. I guess I'm just way behind on the times, but there's tons of women rappers and all they sing about is their coochie and their buttholes.
Surely are end times.
This is a fact, yeah.
And this is kids listening to that, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years old even, listening to that crap. So they're sexualized at a much earlier age. We had Motley Crue, girls. That was kind of like, ooh, they're in a strip club.
Ooh.
Ain't nothing like it is today, Jack. You watch a video now, it's like watching Cinemax After Dark when I was a kid. They're grooming these kids and they're making it to where, like he said, that they want to be a willing participant. That's the scary part.
Hashtag homeschool.
Yeah. I hate to hear of all the, I think it was 85,000 abductions. That's just ridiculous. And there's something we've got to be able to do as a society to stop that. So I hope this Sound of Freedom movie is going to do what it takes for whoever becomes president. And we know Biden's brain dead, so there's nothing to happen. We're going to have to rely on the next president to step in and say, okay, we need to allocate some of our funds towards stopping this.
Vivek, where you at, bro? Seriously, though.
Like, share,
subscribe,
do the thing. Until the next time, guys, as always, come at me, bro.